Check, check. It is run-up time. We got about 4 minutes until time to begin this week's installment. So y'all let me know how the audio is sounding. Got a couple minutes to double check. So check, check, check-a-doodle-doo, check-a-doodle-doo. Check, check. Testes, testes, 1, 2, 3. Testes, testes, 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's right. If I were a Greek god, my name would be Testicles. Oh. Is that a tender subject, Brent? Whew. All right, I'm going to kill the stream for a second so that whatever rewatch we have come out does not have my goofy garbage at the beginning of it. So, shall be right back, y'all. Hey, folks, we are back for another week of our artist development series from CGBytes. I am Les from 6S1, your weekly guide through all things Zbrush, DS, content development-y sort of stuff. Yeah, and I just totally flubbed that silly lead in. But whatever, you guys get the picture. I am here yet again for another week to take you guys on a rip-roaring trip through the world of content development. We are continuing our series of Alien Allure. This will be the final installment in that series where we wrap things up, putting together the different pieces of that puzzle with the morphs, textures, all that cool stuff. Tie it all together with a nice big fat ribbon on it. Maybe take a look at a couple of the promo scenes that I put together, which you guys should see some of the results from in the promo images that accompany these items as they've been distributed through CGBytes. So as is kind of my my weekly dealio, take a quick moment to pop over to the chat, see who all is joining us so far today. We have Mr. Lobo, Mr. Jeremy Terrier. I please forgive me in my pronunciation of people's names. So Jeremy, hi, how you doing? Henrico is with us, and congrats to Henrico on his recent. I saw some news from him about recent career change and some cool stuff going on there. So congrats to you on that stuff, dude. Let's see. Of course, we have Mr. 3D Loki, also known as Jason, also known as the Grand Poobah du jour of all things marketing from CGBytes, hanging out with us. Usually moderating to some degree the lovely chat room. See, Matthew Pitts is with us. My buddy Brent Bowers is here. I see, who else? Anybody? Scrolling. Jay Hudson, how you doing? Boba Squid, that's a good name. I like that one. Boba Squid is with us. Russ Barrett. Reggie Hicks is with us. A stalwart regular there, Mr. Hicks. Let's see, Nick Silver. So yeah, we got a good little group of people hanging out already. And as seems to be the habit, I know there's some folks who kind of trickle in as things get up and running. So you guys pardon me if you can hear a little sniffle from time to time. My allergies are just off the freaking hook right now. Because we're in southern Ohio, one of those places that gets all 4 seasons and sometimes all inside one day. And we have had ragweed like nobody's business for about a week and a half now. So which I can't complain because it's actually been an incredibly mild, awesome summer here. So it's about high time that my allergies finally kicked me right in the ass. So anyway, let's jump into this. Okay, we're wrapping up the Alien Allure series, and I wanted to kind of go through some process-related issues and talk a little bit about that. And I decided to do that by going back to actually kind of a sideline design that happened one day when we were talking about sculpting. And I was showing some things about inserts and vector displacement brushes and all that. So you guys might recall from a couple weeks back, I had nicknamed this Rudian because it was very much inspired by a Hans Rudy Giger sort of concept. Love Geiger, Geiger. Again, don't blame me. I'm American. I pronounce everyone's names wrong. So I kind of named this after him. You know, Hans Rudy Giger, called it the Rudian. So right before starting up our stream today, I went ahead and baked out the textures from this. Actually, in the stream where this was created, I didn't finish out the textures then. And what I wanted on this were just some simple textures that sort of conveyed that airbrush feeling of Geiger's work. And as a big Geiger fan, and as somebody who has been an airbrush guy for pretty much all my professional life, it's something I like doing on the side, and I used to do it. I used to run airbrush shops, did tons of airbrush murals, just ridiculous amounts of crap with airbrushes. Everything from comic book covers to motorcycles to murals. I mean, it was nuts. But all that to say, I'm a huge Geiger fan. And so I wanted to kind of bring some of that airbrush aesthetic to a texture set that would go with this particular shape. So I went ahead and did that kind of off screen so that I wouldn't bog down the time with it. It actually didn't take very long, so I could have done it on here, I guess. But I'll show you guys what I've done here. I've output those textures now, and I used the multi-map exporter to save those out as TIFF initially, and then after saving as TIFF, went through and converted, as you'll all probably have seen me do in the past, using a little program called ABIC, and converted all those TIFFs to JPEGs because it's just a super fast way to work. I also stripped out the parentheses file names from the depth maps or the displacement maps, because in Zbrush, when you use multi-map exporter, your displacement maps come out with a name that has in parentheses at the end a set of values. And those values can be useful, but we don't really need them that much anymore. So I go ahead and strip them off, because sometimes the numbers in those will cause the names to show up in different order than what they actually should. And I want to have everything so that I can see it really clearly, so I can see the names. Makes doing the setup of the textures inside DS much, much faster and easier, because I'm not actually having to read through all of them. I can just look for the UDIM numbers, which as many times as I've spoken about UDIM, just to briefly touch on that again for any folks who might be kind of a first timer or unfamiliar with what UDIM is. UDIM is a format that we use for multiple UV tiles. So you can have many different textures that otherwise would sit on top of each other because your UVs will all be stacked. With UDIM, you have all the UVs for one texture is in one tile, and then the next texture they go in another tile, and so on. And they tile out through space so that you have multiple maps. And those tiles get identifications that read, depending on the formatting, there's a handful of different ways UDIM is implemented. That implementation always leads to a different file suffix or a different naming convention. But the UDIM naming convention from Zbrush looks like this, where you'll have your file name, and then after it you'll have underscore U1 underscore V0. So that's just a quick kind of look, and so that you understand at what those numbers, what those little indicators are at the end of these files. Those simply are telling us where in UV tile space that particular map sits. So, and those correspond, actually, if we look inside DS, let's just pop back over here. If you look inside DS and you go to your surfaces, there's an interesting thing that Daz did that I'm quite fond of, where if you look through here at these templates, right? If we were to open up surfaces down here, so template 1 reads ears, eye socket, face, and lips. That template pulls or touches each of these surfaces. Well, template 1 corresponds exactly to U0, V0, which in zero-based numbering, that's going to be your first map. So template 1 corresponds to the first map. Template 2 corresponds to, guess what, torso, which is, bingo, right here, U1, V0, our second map. So all of these, the way Daz set up the templates in this is something that, as tiny a little thing as it is, it pleases me greatly that they did that, because I know looking at these, I can follow, even if I'm using zero-based UDIM or if I'm using one-based UDIM, which is what Mudbox will spit out, and sometimes I use Mudbox for things, but don't tell anyone. Regardless of which one, I mean, it's an easy thing to shift and go, oh, this is zero-based or this is one-based. But it's nice to know that these all run in exactly the same order that those tiles fall when they're output. So that's kind of a cool thing. So here I've output the textures from that. And I've also gone ahead and sent that shape over to Daz Studio via GoZ. And so here we can see what that translates to. And since this is something that we really need to get a lot of detail added in from the maps, because the base mesh doesn't really have enough detail, even with subdivision turned on, to hold that resolution, or to hold all the stuff that we did at higher resolutions. That's okay, because that stuff will translate in really well through displacement and normal mapping. And this is a great candidate for a lot of that. So there's going to be a little bit of disparity, and I think I'm going to talk about this. There's things I can't show because of legal reasons, but there is a method that where we can use HD morphs and do HD geometry stuff, but unfortunately that is all legally locked down by end user license agreement stuff, which anybody can go look that up. So I'm not talking about anything anyone shouldn't know about already. So there's ways that we could transfer that stuff in, but unfortunately there's a number of legal reasons that you just don't. If you're not, this is something that Daz has that stuff locked down in some ways that are a little aggravating. So what we're going to do here is build up some textures and use displacement and normal maps to sort of sidestep the need for that HD geometry, which I think is a good thing anyway, because if you can build something that doesn't need to use a bazillion polygons, then for God's sakes, do it. Do it that way. Don't use extra resolutions. Don't use any of that stuff you don't need to. You know, if you can get there, if you can get to the end result lightly, with less mesh, with less textures, with less of anything, then the lighter the load, the faster the rendering, the faster and easier it is to make art. So I think that's a good thing. So we have our morph loaded up right now. And one of the things that I like with this morph is it doesn't really alter any body proportions, like at all. So that makes it a very simple morph to work with, because we don't need to do any major rigging changes. I can't really see any rigging changes hardly at all that we need. Maybe a few in the face, it looks like. Yeah. So let's go through and do a couple little changes here. I want to go into my parameters on this, set my minimum to 0, and then I also need to set a property group, which you can also do. You guys see me do this a lot of time by right-clicking and setting it through there, but you can also open up your parameter settings and set your property group through here. And that where you do that, it doesn't say property group, it says path. So that's what your property group does. Your property group defines the path inside these menus where things will show up. So if we have our parameter settings open and we go to our path, we can click here and you'll see you have drop downs for all the different options and things that are available. And of course, we could also just type a general name in here. So this works a lot like typing a URL. So if I go in here and I type actor, because I want this to show up under my actor categories, and then I put a / and let's say, well, I can also, I want to make sure that I spell this right. I am horrible at getting names wrong on certain things. So fantasy, sci-fi, one word with a capital F. So let's type in here, fantasy, sci-fi. Okay. So now if I hit accept, you'll see it disappears from over here. We go into actor and, oh, made a mistake there. I needed to add that under people because that's kind of the standard thing. So let's go here and we can append this. We'll just type people, then put a / and now we hit enter. So now we'll go to actor, people. Oh, did I do it wrong? I still did it wrong. And see, this is why that little drop down's handy, because you can just go choose it. So I need to change that. If I type that so that it's correct, then it should disappear from there. And now people, fantasy, sci-fi, there's our morph. So I don't always fumble like that, but I kind of wanted to intentionally show you guys a little bit there so you could see, oh wait, this is how that works and why that works that way. So now that we've put that in its property group, I'm actually going to take a look at a couple of things. I want to close that mouth up. It looks like I had a little bit of shrinkage in the mouth. So let's just come back over to my original. And let's take a move topological with some symmetry turned on. And we'll just close that mouth up a little bit. And now let's send it back over. And I'm going to come over here. And it's called Rudian. We're going to overwrite the existing morph. I'm going to make sure that I set overwrite existing to deltas only. And that almost closed that up. Just a little bit more. Maybe even give it just a touch of an inflate right there. Let's do that one more time. There we go. That's more what I'm looking for. Okay, so now if we want to pick up any of the subtle little differences in the face into our rigging, we're going to need to go to our joint editor, which is this little guy right here. Okay, that's the joint editor tool. Or as I hold the mouse over it, you can see the tooltip pops up, and the key command for that is Alt-Shift-J. Most of the tools inside DS can be reached via key commands that begin with Alt plus Shift and then something indicative of the tool. So from here, I'm going to right click, go to Edit, Adjust Rigging to Shape, and I'm going to uncheck all over here, and I'm going to right click and uncheck all over here. And this is really, really important. Lots of times when folks are doing character sets of some kind, whether it's a monster or a human or whatever, they miss this really, really important key step. The reason this step is so vital is because the figures from Daz, they have a lot of really nice facial rigging inside them. So a lot of things that people call face morphs, they'll call mouth open a face morph. It's actually not a morph. It's being driven by bones, being driven by joints. And most of the facial movement in these figures are joint driven. Since they're joint driven, that's what allows us to have these wildly different shapes and then slave that rigging to the shapes and adjust the rigging to the shapes so that it compensates. Morphs can't do that. Joints can. And it's a very cool thing. If you don't set up this adjust rig to shape properly, then what ends up happening most of the time, the most common mistake that I see, is when people have too much selected in here. They just, well, I'll just leave it all selected and let it do its thing. Yeah, not so much. What's going to happen with that is there's so many little nooks and crannies, or so many vertices, or so much that gets called in that rigging, that if you have all of this up, what's going to happen is it's going to compare, it's going to look at a piece of mesh where you've changed its shape. It's going to compare that to the bones that it is associated with and to its original shape, and then try to move the origin and endpoint of those bones relative to what you've changed the shape. If you have too many things selected, then it gets confused. It starts splitting the difference between things in some really funky ways, and you can end up with some crazy stuff. So you want to make sure, typically you want to do the head separate from the rest of the body. Sometimes I'll even go so far as to do the eyes in a separate pass of rigging adjustment, then all of the upper facial rigging in a separate pass, then the lower facial rigging in a separate pass, and then everything from the neck down. So what's happening is I'm telling it what to pay attention to at what point of the process. That way it doesn't get confused. You know, sometimes it'll look at the upper neck joint, and then it'll look at the jaw, and it'll look at things attached to the jaw, and it'll be like, oh my God, where do I move all this stuff? And, you know, it's the program's a great program, but not always that smart when it comes to those things. So if we give it fewer choices, then it will make those choices in a much better way. So from inside the Adjust Rig to Shape menu, I'm going to select Head. Then I want to look for Lower Jaw and Upper Jaw and Tongue. Those are the things that I want the program to pay attention to at the moment. Now over here, I've right-clicked and hit Uncheck All. So now we can collapse that pelvis. I'll collapse the left and right collars so that it makes all of this easier to look at. I want to go down to the head, and then I will right-click and hit Check, Selected, and Children. That's going to grab all of the joints associated with that. Then I'm going to uncheck the eyes. I don't want the eyes included in that. Okay, so now let's hit Accept. And there you can see, once it finished calculating, you can see how it shifted everything just a little bit. So now that we've adjusted that rigging, let's come back out to our figure, to that morph, and then I will right-click, go to ERC Freeze, and barring anything strange going on in my scene, the only things that should show up in this menu will be all of the different parameters that have been changed by adjusting rigging. So now I'll hit Accept. And now when we move the slider for that shape, you should see certain pieces of the rigging really kick in and move. And here we have the left lip lower inner. Its end point isn't moving, but it's okay. We should be fine with that, because if I grab that and move it, it still seems to move pretty well. And to check this sort of thing, we can always just go into the head, or you can go to the head dials that are on the body. They're just aliases of each other. We can go there and let's do a little test drive using maybe some expressions. So there, our smile works pretty well. There's a frown. So typically the expressions, if anything's going to break, checking it with these expressions is kind of my first stop. So also at that point, I can look and see if I want to make any changes inside the inner mouth. For instance, I think I want to inflate my teeth a little bit so that they don't have all these crazy gaps. And what's nice is once we're at this point where it's set up in this way, I could just open up the mouth. And let's go to mouth open wide, where I can see all those parts. And now I'm going to send that back over to Zbrush via GoZ, which, again, I have a key command for that, but where you would find that in the program is by going to File, Send to Zbrush. Then once I'm over here, I'll just select the parts inside the mouth. And I want to make sure also that I'm going to inflate these out, and then after I make any adjustments inside here, making sure that everything's pressed into the gums properly, all that sort of thing. Once I send this over, back over to DS, I'm going to check it there, and then probably need to double check to see if it's conflicting with the HD morph shape for the mouth. Okay, so there we've got those all moved out. And now I'm going to send that back over. And since GoZ and the morph dialog here will reverse out any deformations in the scene, if you bring it over just like this, it will reverse any deformations out. So we can just type the name in now, hit override existing morph, come back into advanced, and then we'll right click on override existing, and we want deltas only. And you'll notice above that it says reverse deformations, and that's set to yes. What that's going to do is reverse out. It's going to look and see any morphs that are turned on, any shape changes are there, and reverse that vertex data out from what we're sending back over to DS. By doing that, that means we can then use DS almost like a tool for sculpting, because once we have a general shape that we like, we can send it over. Then we can look at things that we need to tweak inside the mouth just by opening the mouth, opening the eyes, open anything up. You can move things around in here and see anything that you might want to tweak and send it back over to ZBrush, make those changes as you had it posed inside DS, and then send it back over and overwrite it. And since it knows to reverse those things out, you're not, it's not like you're adding those deformations into your sculpt. So it really works well together. So if we hit accept, now you'll see those teeth fill in. And so now we can close that mouth back up. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go back out to the root of the Genesis 3 female. And let's just go up here to our little search bar. This is so handy. And if we just type HD, then we'll see Mouth Realism HD is not on. I'm betting if I turn that up, I'm going to have my teeth get kind of janky looking. So there is the changes that they're making are so subtle, I barely notice them, but I do see some little changes. So what I'm going to do, and this is a neat little trick, back here inside ZBrush, I'm going to store a morph target because I know this is actually the shape that I want to be engaged when that mouth HD morph is turned on. So now I have that morph realism, mouth realism HD turned on, and I'm going to send this back over to ZBrush. And so here I can hit switch and you'll see there's the difference. There's actually what that does to the mesh. So I'm just going to switch back out one more time to the shape that I want. We're going to send it back over. And again, it's going to reverse things out. So we'll just type its name in here. Override existing morph. Deltas only. And so now we get exactly the shape we want with Mouth Realism HD turned on. That is an extremely, extremely important step because especially where I started working on this in a different session than when I first sent it over, and I'm working on it with that stuff turned off, you want to make sure that you turn this back on and you work that out so that these morphs, any morphs you make, work with Mouth Realism HD turned on. Otherwise, when you load in the Genesis 3 female or any Genesis figure, it's going to have that turned on, and if there's a conflict between your shape and the Mouth Realism HD morph, then you're going to open the mouth and go, oh my god, why do my teeth look like crap? Well, because it's conflicting with the morph you sculpted. Your morph didn't take that morph into account. So there's a kind of a stacking thing that happens with a lot of morphs in DS, and by default, Mouth Realism HD is the one that's always there, always waiting to stack with whatever else you're going to add on top of it. I've got my issues with that being the case, but it is what it is, and we have to deal with it. So this is how I deal with it: is just make sure I save a morph target in ZBrush, resend back to ZBrush with that Mouth Realism HD turned on, switch, send it back. That is the fast way, ZBrush based way to reverse that stuff out. In the chat, I see where Russ posted. He said, I noticed some issues with base characters when testing custom morphs. For example, for G8, the limit on the eyelids goes to 125% instead of 100%, causing the eyelids to overlap. A lot of times when people are building figures, and Daz is no different, a lot of times we will have things like that, like I personally do that a lot, where I will leave a little bit of a tolerance to the limits on something like that, because even though it may, for instance, on the eyelids, you may run something up to 125% between a couple of joints or whatever, and it may overlap or something, but it may not always do that. Like if you're running the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid to some value past 100, they're probably going to conflict. But if you were doing just one or just the other, or I don't know, there's different mitigating circumstances for why things end up that way sometimes. So I tend to be pretty forgiving about that, honestly. Because I know I do it myself sometimes. So, and yeah, Russ goes on to ask if you fix those when you encounter them in character or leave as is. It really depends. Sometimes I like to leave little things like that if they seem like they can be used to exaggerate, say, an expression, or to create some kind of hyper-extended motion. If they seem to me like they actually can have a purpose, or if I built them for a purpose, I definitely want to leave them in. And if they seem to me like they could have a purpose, then I'll probably leave it. It really just depends. A lot of times, too, that depends, whether I leave something like that in a figure depends on my tester feedback. If it is really, really confusing people and really seems to cause a problem, then I'll probably tweak it. But if it's something where people are like, oh, what's this? And it's just a question, and like, oh, okay, cool. Then, you know, I'll just make usage notes of it or something like that and leave it. Yeah, Nick Silver commented, said V4 had a lot of morphs that went over 100%. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very, very common. A lot of times, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that it's an interesting comparison to make, in that when you're a lot of the folks, like some of the guys at Daz, some of the folks at Daz who work on these figures, and then some of the others of us who are kind of more staples of the end of the market that is all about building original figures. You know, there's kind of there's like a little sub community, a little niche that's a handful of us weirdos who build mostly original figures instead of just add-ons for existing figures. When you look at that group of people, a lot of those people are also animators. And a decent little number of us are professional animators outside of Daz and Poser. And in animation, most of the time, we want things to be able to hyperextend. We want to be able to have an elbow bend back a little further than it should, or a knee bend a little further than it should. The reason for this is an animation technique, or a function of animation called squash and stretch. You could animate something, if you animate something with it locked, with all of its limits locked to exactly what its physiognomy would really, really be in the really real world, this funny thing happens where it looks stiff. Even though you know beyond the shadow of a doubt, well, anatomically, this is 100% correct. This is absolutely right. I have all my tolerances. I've done my homework. I've studied Grey's Anatomy and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, throw it out the window. Chuck it. It means nothing in the end. Because in the end, all that matters, at least to animators, is how does it look when it moves? When it moves, do I believe it? And in order to have believable movement, there's a funny thing that happens where if you were watching someone, if you watch a baseball player, when he swings the bat, your mind fills in certain gaps that you don't actually ever really see. You fill in certain gaps for the hyperextension of that bat as it swings around. You fill in gaps for how far his legs twisted as he torques his hips. As animators and technical directors, guys who are rigging pros, we compensate for that. We allow for that, because if we don't put that in something digital, then your eyes don't fill it in. Your eyes don't have quite the right sense. It's really strange how it works, but your eyes won't fill that in with something that's digital. We have to give your brain that little bit of extra data, that little hyperextension, and then you fill it in, and all of a sudden things become far more natural looking. That's why classic animation like Bugs Bunny is, it's like, well, it's just lines drawn, but you watch it and there's a believability to it, even though it's completely unreal. And that's because it has a good application of squash and stretch. When we're rigging characters, we can provide the end user, and a lot of us as TDs will do it out of habit, from our own project experiences. We'll go ahead and provide you guys as end users or whoever, we'll go ahead and provide them the ability to have that little hyperextension, that little squash and stretch in there, because you can add realism to movement with it. Now, there's a case to be made that, well, most people using Daz or Poser aren't animating, so why would they ever need that? And there's a legitimate debate to be had over that. I personally want more people in Daz and Poser animating, want to see more animation going on, have wanted it for years. Even though it doesn't happen, it's still one of my personal little dreams for the community, I guess. And so I always kind of veer towards this idea. It's like, well, I want to give them that anyway. I want to give them that little extra thing in there. that makes that, makes it possible. If an animator gets a hold of this, somebody's got some animation talent, gets a hold of this and wants to go that route with it, they can. So that's kind of where, or one source. There's other reasons that happens sometimes too, but that's kind of the source that I cite for myself when those kind of things come up, because it's usually why it's there for me. So yeah, squash and stretch are, sadly to me, I think they're ideas that are often lost on a lot of folks using Poser and DS. It's the nature of what it is. I mean, there's a certain, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but like even sometimes still images would really benefit from squash and stretch, which, just to plug an older seminar that we've done, we actually did some stuff sometime back about creating more, poses that had morphs that accompanied them, that provided squash and stretch and little things like that added realism. So right there is just a great, that's kind of a great case study in exactly what I'm talking about, and how it even applies to still images. So that's kind of a really long, robust answer to that sort of question, but it's a question that unpacks a few things that lead to deeper subjects. So that's kind of my take on that. So anyway, don't want to get sidetracked for too long with that, but it's actually brings me to something, just a little side note that I want to make. Next week's session is going to be, I call them pickup sessions. It's where it's going to be an open forum where you guys, especially between now and next week, I want you guys to send in your questions. I get a lot of questions from day to day anyway, because it's part of what I'm here for. People reach out to me and I talk with folks and we have great conversations and I help people. But I really want you guys to kind of put together your laundry list of Les, I want to know about this. What's up with this? What's this little thing? What's that little thing? So that next week we can, like, I don't know, maybe depending on how long the list is, we may have to cherry pick a few of them. But I'd like to get some feedback from you guys and know, what are the things that you guys still have some questions about. What would you like to see looked at a little bit more? Just, all that kind of stuff. So be thinking about that if you would. And especially in the course of today, while we wrap up the Alien Allure series, it might be a good time for you guys to kind of collect your thoughts on things that you might have questions about, so that you can share those with us, especially on the Facebook group. Share those there over the course of the next week. And then next week, I will just come in and see how many of those I can kind of knock out of the park for you guys. The Mecha Soccer, Terry asked in the chat about the Mecha Soccer. Originally, I was going to start it next week, but there's a few little things that I'm kind of working out on the back end that I want to make sure are just right before we get into that. So we moved that out by a week and designated next week as a pickup week, which we really needed one of those in there anyway. I was kind of nervous about not having one, because I like to have that as sort of it's the occasional sort of mile marker for folks, where we can go back and hopefully, help folks catch back up on a few things here and there. So the following week is when we're going to start the Mecha Soccer League. Still a completely bizarre idea to me. I'll be honest, it's bizarre, but it sounds like it could be fun, and I think it will be. I think there's some folks who are really excited about it, and so we'll have more details coming on that. So let's pop back in here now that we have our facial rigging adjusted and everything is hooked in. From there, the last thing I need to do, and you'll notice I'm using a stripped out copy of Genesis 3 that I've saved with all the stuff turned off. I suggest having one of those on hand for yourself, so that you can work without any morphs being turned on, so that you have kind of the negative, completely flatline base to build from and to save out your own morph assets from. So I want to save this, and here I'm going to go over to my libraries, and let's just go into, let's see, actually, I'm going to make a new folder for this one. I'm going to call it Rudian. And I believe I need to, let's see, where did I put that? Here we go. Let's grab that. So I need to make runtime textures CGBytes, and I'll drop my Rudian textures into there. And then I want to add that as a library, so add a base directory, and let's go Alien Allure Rudian. There we go. So now I have that library loaded up. And I'm going to compare. It's a handy little thing to do here, is be able to compare with other kits and things. So there's also a nice little way to look at how to manage folders and things inside libraries from right here inside the content library window. So I can right click, and I'm just going to create folders that follow this exact structure. So I'm going to right click and create subfolder, and this is going to be people. Then I'll create another subfolder, Genesis 3 female. And there are you can use templates of folders. You know, I have template zips of empty folders templated, but more and more I find myself actually preferring to build these things manually, only because it reinforces in my mind exactly how they should be. And it's almost like doing penance for times that I've had it wrong. But it helps me reinforce, you know, that it's that it needs to be a certain way. Okay, and I need to rename that. I just kind of blindly named it based on what I was looking at there. So actually, no, I don't need to rename that, because I'm going to put that under Alien Allure. Or we don't even have to, because it's kind of its own thing. I don't know. Moments like that are always kind of a decision to make. So let's just do that like this. Let's. Where do I want to put that? Do I want it under there? Yeah. Yeah. We'll keep it under there. So I know I'm so incredibly decisive. Once I have my folders and everything set up, my directory set up, I'm going to save as a morph asset. And again, I have a key command for that. If you don't, you go to File, Save As, Support Asset, Morph Asset. And so I'm going to navigate to my Rudian. Here you can see all the libraries we have loaded. I'm going to navigate to the one labeled Rudian. And then product name, I'm going to call this Rudian. There's a shocker. And the only thing that I want to select inside here, I'm going to go to Actor, People, Fantasy Sci-Fi, and Rudian. So now that morph asset has been saved. So that's handy. And since I like my material settings that I have on the Alien Alien Aggro, which hopefully you guys have seen that by now, I'm going to apply this material and then use that. I'm going to show you guys how to use that as a basis. Really, I mean, all we're doing is changing out maps. So I'm applying this material, and then I'm going to change out my maps. So we'll go into template 1, okay, which we see here is the face. Let's browse. And so I want that. And I have a little workflow trick here that I find works really, really well. I'm going to go ahead and make some changes on this. Well, let's pull up iRay and just look at where this leads us with the face. Give this just a moment. Un momento. So right now it has the texture on. We need to apply the normals. So let's go scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. I also want to change some of these colors because I want to have that coldness that this critter should have. Maybe change that translucency color to something darker. And let's go down. Down, 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 down. Okay, so base bump. Here's a little nifty trick. Okay, right now, since we started with the Alien Aggro material, this is going to reference the directory that has that texture in it. I get annoyed at having to drill through folders. So what I'll do is I'll just change this right now to this Rudian, even though I know that's wrong. But what will happen is if I change these to the Rudian, and they're going to look really bad for a minute, since those then become the active textures in these channels, now if I hit browse, it's going to take me right to where I need to go. So it's kind of a little workflow tip there. And just so that we can see this at its most effective, let's go turn our morph on. Okay, so let's turn on where did that go? There it is. So we'll turn our morph on. And then we also have one big difference here in this material is we're going to use some displacement mapping. So let's go find that. We want displacement strength. So we'll browse and choose this fella right here. Let's set that. And let's also take a look and see what our resolution is set to at the moment on the figure itself. We do have high resolution turned on. That's cool. So let's zoom out a little bit. Okay. And then let's see. What do we want here? Displacement strength. Minimum, maximum. Let's set that to something a little higher. And it is affecting it in the viewport. That's good. That's what we want. We want to be able to judge that there. So we could go through now. This is a good opportunity to just play around with some things in those materials. Make any alterations that we want to make from here. So let's see where we go. Of course, I also output a cavity map, which is really handy. So let's go into our, let's see, diffuse roughness. Let's go, or excuse me, I'll put in ambient occlusion map. So let's grab that AO map. Plug that in. I'm not even sure that I want to use that actually. I don't know. It's hard to say. Nah, we don't need that. Okay. So then let's go through here and look at a few different things. Base color. A dual lobe specular is something relatively new. My attitude about most of these things is play with it and see what you get. I know that's completely not what people often want to hear, but it really is kind of the case because playing with things is kind of important. You know, tinker with the dials, see where they go, see where you end up with them. Okay. Let's go double check. I want to make sure that I have everything that I need. There's my normal map, my base bump. Let's turn that guy up a little bit. Alright, so once I have all that stuff, let's just click on one of those materials. I'll right click and hit copy selected surface. Now I'll click on template 2 and paste. And of course it's going to shove the facial stuff in. But what that's going to give me is a shader pasted in that has the exact same settings. So then I can just go through and change my maps. So let's do that for each of these. There we go. Now we're starting to get that special Geiger love. All right. So let's go to template 3. Paste. Let's make sure we paste that over everything. And again, just walk back through here. This is one of the best ways I have found to make sure that you have compatible settings across everything. That way you don't end up introducing seams based on your material settings. If you're ever going to have seams, if you have differences in your material settings, then they'll show up at the seam where those materials meet, where those different sections meet, those surfaces. And it's very important, I find, to make sure you have the same shader settings, say from the torso to the legs or from the torso to the arms, so that the shaders themselves are not corrupting what your eyes are seeing when you go looking for any seams. All right, so I just completely forgot which map I was going for there. Here we go. And then, which one was that? That's U2, U2. Okay. Let's make sure that we got all of those. It's the one danger is that if you use those maps in a few different places, it can be very easy to accidentally miss something. So, like right there, I still have the head map in there for those legs. Okay. So now here we're on the arms. Let's paste. Start here with my displacement. Pop that in there. Let's scroll this up. Let's grab our normal map. And so that's U3, UDIM tile U3 for the arms. And then grab our color map. All right. So the next thing I want to do is let's do the same thing for the mouth. We're going to paste. And then our bump strength. And that reminds me, I probably want to double check and make sure that I have that bump strength correct on all of these. Interesting. I'll make sure I have that correct. There we go. Let's paste that in there. Now, there we go. Let's grab our color, which I'm probably going to come in and remove that color from the teeth, but you'll see that here in a minute. There's a method to my madness here with where we're heading on this. Okay, scrolling. All right. Should be one more place. There we go. We want that displacement map. Okay. The next thing is going to be the eyelashes, which I'm going to get rid of completely. So let's just convert that over to an eye ray base. Turn that base color down. And this is really just a quick way to get rid of anything that has a surface that you can use this for. I'm going to scroll down to the cutout opacity. I just turn that all the way down. So now there's no eyelashes. All right. Then next up we have the eyes. Okay. And let's convert those. And then I'm going to paste this in and set these up the same as the skin, but then I'm eventually going to make some changes that are going to be kind of nifty. Right now we just want to get everything plugged in. Down here. All right. And then we have the last material here, which we're going to convert to iRay and then paste. And just a side note, where I'd copied a material that was based on the iRay Uber shader, you can't paste iRay Uber or anything iRay over something that is 3D Light default. It just won't do it. So you actually have to change it and then paste it. Okay. So let's go through here and change all of this fun stuff out. There we go. This is kind of the longest, most tedious part of this whole process, is just going through and plugging in all the blasted maps. Okay. So now I have all those maps plugged in. I want to take a trip back through one more time, just looking at each to double check. So template 1 is the head map. and I'm about 90% sure that somewhere along the way I probably forgot something. Okay, there's the torso, legs, arms. Okay. I feel like I might have a texture seam showing up somewhere. Maybe. Interesting. It's funny how those things show up sometimes, and then you guys all saw that, right? There was a seam showed up, and then it went away. So it's only showing up from certain angles. That is remarkably aggravating. I'm about 100% sure it's going to be an issue with my displacement. So there's a few different things that we could do to sort of sort that out. This is just for demonstration purposes right now anyway, so I don't want to take up a lot of time with troubleshooting. The couple of other little material changes that I would make to what we have right now is going to be in the eyes. So let's take these the eye moisture surfaces, and let's turn up some refraction in those. Okay. And then in the same section here on the eyeballs, let's turn that refraction up as well. Actually, let's turn that back down. I do think I want to make my base color darker. Right. So once we have all our materials applied, we've saved out our morph, everything is set up. I'm going to go in now and make sure that I have all the little doodads turned on, which really just means the HD mouth morph. So let's make sure that that is turned on. Mouth Realism HD. I don't know why I can never remember that name. So there's that. And we have our morph turned on. So now we can save this as a character setup. So let's go over here to our Rudian. And I want to save this as a character preset. I'm going to call that Rudian. I want my shape settings, my material settings, and we should be good. Okay. So now I should be able to load that back in. There we go. Give that just a moment. So Always like to double check things against some different lighting. And for most of the Alien Allure series, I've been using this Pro Photo Studio backdrop. That was really kind of some cool stuff. So once you get that lit, you get some really cool things going on. Or we can do aliens on a beach. Where's my beach? There's my beach. Son of a beach. All right. I had to do it. I had to go there. So that's a nice HDR that just gives you a really broad lighting. So I like to check things out against different backdrops. See how it's all going to work out. See if this one works out all right. Yeah, this is an artificial HDR that I made painting in Photoshop, but it yields some interesting results for testing. I'm almost tempted to yank the displacement maps out of this. I don't even think they're really needed because the normal maps just do so much. They carry so much of that detail. Just pretty gosh darned cool if you ask me. All right, so that's been checked over and everything. Barring any little things like the little seam that I was seeing and then I don't see it, then I see it, and then I don't see it. Barring any little things like that, I should be able to finish this out. So let's just pick out a pose. I'm just going to grab something at random. There's, so much to choose from out there. Let's go, let's see, people, Genesis 3 female, poses. And let's grab, I don't know, there she goes. Isn't she quaint? So from here, this is kind of some of the final stages in a product, really, before just doing your promo art, is going to be the little bells and whistles that kind of make it look all pretty inside the libraries. So like right here, I'm going to render myself a 300 by 300. So let's go ahead and hit render on that. Shouldn't take too awful long. While that's chugging through that, I'm going to take a glance back over the chat. So, seems like everybody got awful quiet out there. That's okay. You just watch what is the lovely process of rendering. Iray, render target, canvas was written. Yay. Spit it out, Iray. Spit it out. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, 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 doom. Do, 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 do. Isn't that magical? I'm surprised that's chugging on that as long as it is. Really should have been faster than that. Looks like it's almost done. It'll probably hit like 70 and then jump right to the end or some crap. It's really weird to me how erratic the timing can be on Iray. So once I have a render, then I'll right click on that render in my render album. And we'll save as, and let's go find our folder. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. And while I'm in here, before I save this, I'm also going to take it as an opportunity to remove the .duf from the name. And then if we refresh this, we get that, and of course we get the little pop-up. Then I have another template here that I'm going to call up that is for my, let's see, what it was, character cards, DS character card. You'll see this is a different size image. And also with that, I'm going to go over to my environment, and I'm going to turn Draw Dome off. So that's going to give me a nice transparency, and we will render that little fella. What we're going to use that for is to put on the character card. That's the big thumbnail that shows up in the shaping tab, shows up on your dials, all that kind of groovy stuff. So we will let this chug for just un momento, or 3, maybe 3 moments, maybe more. We'll see. Yeah, Nick said this is an invitation for IRA to crash if ever he saw one. I live dangerously, Nick. I live dangerously. I tempt the IRA fates on a regular basis. And bada bing. So there I have my render for that character card. I'm going to open up Photoshop now. I have a template for myself. There's a couple little things. It's not 100% necessary, but there's a couple little things you need to do to these character cards to really make them exactly what you need. So let's just let's go in here. And where did I put these? Oh, where is it? It's in all my stuff. I have so much stuff here. It's just goofy. So internal docs. That's the one. Let's see. FBM card template. I do believe that is it. And then what else is there? Was there a character card template? No, I think they're all the same thing. No, they're not. Dang it. Dang it, y'all. I'm having a moment. Well, let's just veer away from yonder template for a moment. I'll show you guys a quick way to get to any of this kind of stuff. If we go to our shaping tab, let's see, do we have any character things on here at the moment? No, we don't. Let's go down to any of these. Just go to like bodybuilder. If we click on the little gear here, we'll pull up our parameters, and then we can just go in here and hit browse. And this is my again, it was one of my little workflow tricks. I'll browse to something, then right click it and hit open with, and pop that open in Photoshop. And then just cancel back out of all this stuff. So if I needed to be able to compare, it's a quick way to get to the stuff so I could compare something. So now let's pop over here. Let's go to our render album. And I'm going to save as. And I want to put that in my data file. So Rudian data. Okay, and I want to call this Rudian character card. Okay. And again, just a quick way to navigate to it. Should be able to come in here and open this. I hope that it actually, it did not save my stinking transparency channel. That really bites. That really bites a lot. All right. I've seen it save that out before properly. I'm going to hit render one more time. We're at the point, we're actually a few minutes past where I normally take a little break. So I'm going to take 5, grab a drink. When I come back, we'll save this. I'll show you guys how to apply that as a character card. We'll wrap all of this up, and you guys will see this get wrapped up and bundled so that I could toss over to Terry and the good folks in testing, and they can test it and do all their magic with it. And it's the exact same process every time. So even though this is ending up with the Alien Allure series, you're seeing a different alien get bundled up here that I'm going to hand off to them, and then hopefully we can make this available to you guys pretty soon. Also, when I get back, we'll load up some of the other cool new Alien Allure related stuff like Alien Aggro that I thought was kind of fun, and then there's a little clothing kit that goes with that. So I'm going to take 5, and oh wait, my render's almost done. So that's what I get for talking too much. So let's go through here, save PNG, let's go choo. This is Rudian character card. Bada bing, bada boom. And yes, I want to overwrite that. And let's come back over here. Alien Allure. Rudian data. Desert Genesis 3D. Female morphs. 6S1. Rudian. There's our card. Yay. So now let's open that over in Photoshop. And I'm going to just copy all of that, paste it over here, or actually let's use our template. Here I've got a template made that allows me to just paste this stuff in and then drag it, and it will cut off what needs to be cut off. So then I can toss this back over. This is a handy little thing. These are really easy to make inside Photoshop. I highly recommend making some of this kind of stuff for yourselves. So now let's just put all those back together and we'll save it. The end result that you want is to be able to cut that bottom off so that it fits into the interface over here properly. So then let's go to our parameters. Actor, let's go to currently used and find it that way. So now if I go in here, let's go to parameter settings. Let's do some colors on this. Let's give color A as something blue, color B as something black, and then let's go navigate to our card. Okay, scenes, Alien Allure, data. Wait, nope. Rudian. Data, there we go. Bingo. Okay. So now if I hit accept, you'll see that comes up there. And if we go to shaping now, boom, there she is. And so the reason that you want to have that little bottom cut off in the transparency in your PNG is so that it sits all nice and tidy against the little backdrop thing that Daz overlays the stuff onto. That's all. So there you have that. The last thing that I need to do is actually resave this. So let's restore the figure. Since it was loaded in as a character preset, loaded from here, it comes in with that set by default. So we're going to need to turn that off to resave the morph asset. If you want these kind of thumbnails to show up on things, you have to resave the asset, the morph asset. So let's go in and just make sure that the default on that is set back to 0, because if the default is not set to 0 and you save it out as a morph asset, you will get all kinds of horrible conflicts. People will become very angry at you. There will be pitchforks and torches. It's awful. Trust me, I've been on the receiving end of it because I make mistakes. All right. So then I want to make sure I have all my little duckies in a row here. Let's save out our morph asset, Rudian, and we're going to navigate to General, Actor, People, Fantasy, Sci-Fi, Rudian, hit Accept, great. So now if I reload that, it should now come in and have, there we go. We have our nifty little icon there. So folks, I have ran over a little bit from when I usually take my break. I was going to take my break a minute ago, and I mentioned it, and the software caught up with me. So I'm going to go grab a quick drink, be back in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, you guys talk amongst yourselves, chit chat, share, I don't know, whatever you guys share when I'm not around. So, but be good. Be good, kids. I'll be right back. And I am back. All right, crazy kids. So we will bundle this puppy up. Going over here, let's just, I'm going to close out all these little guys. We don't need this open anymore. Let's close all this. Great. Awesome. So now let's browse to folder location. And then there's a little thing that I use that is this merchant utility. I can't even remember where this came from. I really don't. I wish I could. Somebody could probably tell me about merchant utility. There we go. Matte Check version 1. Yeah, this is from all the way back in 2003. So, but the only thing in it that I actually use most of the time is the list maker. And so I'll paste my directory in here because we have to write a little README. Yay. So I'm going to borrow a documents folder from somewhere. Let's just grab you. Here we go. And I'm going to paste you in here. Yay. Delete you. Let's change your name. Let's just call it Rudian. All right. And then let's come through here, grab all this. Now, this is kind of a quick run and gun README. This is not because, you know, to actually take the time and really work out a full, pretty, awesome, sawsome, you know, README would be a little bit time consuming in here. But want to make sure that plug all this stuff in. All right. So whatever notes need to be in your kit, you plug them in right here. I'm horrible at that, so alien, morph, character, Geiger, and save it. And did I paste? Yes, cool, I did paste everything in, so that's good. All right, so from there, I will zip this up. And now it just needs images. So, in theory, hopefully this would go through testing pretty easily. It's a pretty simple character. That's generally the process. I'd put a little bit more love into it, polish a little bit more, but I wanted you guys to see the kind of the rest of the process going on out through a quick zip, a quick README. That's sort of the nuts and bolts of how it's done, or at least how I do it. So that is kind of, that's a character piece kind of finished out there for you. So let's go take a look then at, I really wanted to introduce you guys to a little bit about the Alien Allure, kind of the results of the series. We'll show some stuff about the kits that we have available now that are from that. So let's just close all that up. So you guys are familiar with Alien Allure, and let's bring her in for just a moment. It's a fun little girl there. With the Rudian, it was a nice situation because we don't have any major proportional changes. So the rigging didn't have to change a whole lot, but you did get to see some of the rigging being changed in the face. And that process is the same there as it is for pretty much anything that you want to do like this. So let's, actually I want to show you the Alien Aggro. Here we go. So this is what came about from kind of expounding on the Alien Allure concept a little bit. And the final results, then I also went ahead and kind of, outside of normal seminar time, put together these, which, since Terry's in the chat, she can let us know. I think these are available. I'm not sure, honestly. I kind of have a lot of stuff flying by my face from day to day, so sometimes I'm not entirely up on what has released or what hasn't. Oh, cool. Yeah, Terry says the armor and clothes are available. Awesome. Awesome. So let me just pop over. It's probably a better way to kind of show you guys the look on these that we ended up with. Let's go Alien Aggro. And cool, I can show you these renders without the promo stuff on them. So let's go preview. So I was very happy with the end results on that. And in the name of full transparency, since I wasn't doing it live, I actually textured the clothing and armor with Substance Painter. So fun stuff there. This is a nice glimpse at the way the Alien Aggro morph and textures worked out. And the Alien Aggro sits on top of Alien Allure, so it requires the Alien Allure, but you know they're both free, so that shouldn't be a problem for anybody. Oh, the add. Okay, Terry says the add-on hasn't been. So Alien Aggro apparently is not out yet. I can just look and find out. So let's see. Alien Creation Kit. Okay, yeah, the Alien Creation Kit is out. And then the clothing kit, the Alien Aggro, hopefully will be available soon. Cool, cool. Yeah, we can look at that, and hopefully Alien Aggro will be out soon. What I should do, though, is walk through the Alien Creation Kit for you guys real quick, because that has some interesting features to it. So let's load up the my blanked out little G3 female. Actually, let's just load it up on a regular. There we go. Let's load up a regular. Okay, so let's say we wanted to use the Alien Creation Kit to do what it's meant for, build a new alien. With that kit, we have some presets that we've already established. So let's, and these presets are here as kind of examples, okay? Because what these presets do, these presets are built so that they engage different shapes and things that we have in place. Of course, there's a reset here, so that we can, because these will stack. So if we applied preset 2 and preset 1, they're going to stack. So we have the reset there that resets everything back to default shape. So if you wanted to make your own preset like this, okay, then we could just go into our G3 female, and you'll find all of the different Alien Creation Kit dials or sliders are throughout different parts of the actor listings. So full body presets, actually very full character presets, are, you can find them saved here under Fantasy Sci-Fi as ACK presets. So the eyes, since they also brought in the face to some degree, I included out here. Just my personal preference. So let's just let's dial up some combinations. This is where this stuff kind of gets fun, I think, for a lot of folks. Is we could come in and let's dial up maybe some of these wide eyes right here that are kind of freaky. Then let's go into the head. Maybe remove the ears, peel them down to these little nubs. Of course, if you go in the opposite direction, you get these gigantic Dumbo ears. It's kind of funny. Let's reset that. Let's play with some different ears. It's kind of a neat shape. And I like the nose removal. I think that's kind of creepy. All right. And these are a utility for you guys. You guys can save out a morph of these. You can save out an OBJ and use it as a morph, or you can create a new dial in here, create a new property dial, and slave these values to it. If you want to put out something that folks, if you do that, then folks have to have the Alien Creation Kit for the dial that you make to work. So there's a couple different ways, and I want to kind of walk through very briefly. There's kind of a hard way and an easy way to save out your own preset from this stuff. So right now I'm focusing on just the head at the moment. You got a few different shapes pulled together here. Don't really like that. Let's look at our alien hands. Maybe let's elongate the arms a little tiny bit so we play with our proportions there. And if you bring these things to bear, then, like I said, there's an easy way and a hard way to save this. We can create a single slider that controls it. And since these are free, folks can go grab them at will. And then you can create new sliders, new dials that will call this stuff in and save you and have your presets hooked in. So that, to me, that's kind of the optimum way to save your own settings out using this. But the other way would be to actually export an OBJ and then load it back in as a brand spanking new morph. So let's look through here. Maybe we combine some of this in with a little something else, just so we drive some more proportions. Let's see if that does anything really strange to the ears. Let's do currently used. Right now we can look and see everything that's getting called in. So we could dial some of that back. Okay. So let's make sure that we are at the base resolution. Okay. And I'm going to export an OBJ of this. And I'm just going to call this demo alien. Okay. All these settings here, I'm going to leave exactly as is. I'll leave this on screen for a moment so you guys have a second to kind of look that over. So now I'll hit accept. And here's a little trick of my own, just a little thing that I like to do sometimes when I'm working with something and I know I want to restore back to my default, but I want to be able to come back to a shape, maybe. I'll pop into Puppeteer and just click to place a dot. So then if I restore my figure, I can always come back to that shape. Just a nice little temporary thing. So now I'll go to Edit, Figure, and I'm using, let's see, Edit, Figure, and it's been so long since I actually signed off on things. I'm not sure if everybody has Morphloader Pro or Morphloader Advanced. I'm going to use Morphloader Pro, but really the process is the same. So let's choose my morph files, and then and lure, creation kit, dev, demo alien. Okay, cool. There we go. So now I've brought that in as a new morph shape after having exported the OBJ. Of course, since we brought that in as a new morph shape, our rigging does not follow. So we have to go through that whole process that I talked about earlier with the face, where we're going to adjust rigging to shape. So here I've got my joint editor, and I'm going to come in here and let's uncheck all, and then over here I'm going to uncheck the let's uncheck the left eye, lower jaw, right eye, and upper jaw, and I'm going to uncheck the tongue. Okay, so now over here I'm going to select, go to the pelvis, right click and hit check, selection and children, and then let's actually just do that at the hip. We'll select all basically with that. Then let's go to collar, collapse those just so it's easier to see. Go to the head, right click, uncheck, selected in children, but then I'll recheck the head. That way the overall head shape is still being looked at, just not all this other stuff. So now we'll hit accept, give that a moment. So now you see all that stuff pops into place. That's good. It's a good start. So now we're going to run that rigging adjustment again. This time we're only going to work with the facial parts. So we'll adjust rigging to shape, uncheck all. Let's close up those collars so that it's easier to look at. I'll go to head, and I'm going to give this a shot. I may have to redo some of this. I like to try doing all of the head at once just to see, because if it works, great, then I don't have to do anything else. But sometimes it'll throw an error, or it might have some problems. So let's go check selected in children. And then over here we're going to uncheck all. We want the head, left eye, lower jaw, right eye, upper jaw, and tongue. Hit accept. And that looks like it probably worked out pretty well. So to check it, the big thing that I use to check that kind of stuff most of the time, just to kind of get a cursory check on it, is to go into your pose controls and go to the head, go to expressions, and if your expressions hold up, odds are you're pretty solid. You still want to go through and look at it with everything, check it against all the other stuff, but that looks pretty good. So for the sake of brevity here, I'm going to leave that as is. So now I'll go to where my morph is. This was our demo alien. I'll right click, ERC freeze. Okay, so there we have all of that. And I'll hit accept. And so now if I restore my figure, it goes back to original. And now all that is hooked in to the demo alien. Now, if we saved this morph asset of the demo alien, then we would be able to save that as an actual morph, piece of morph data, and it would have that rigging change hooked in, and the end user would not need to have any of the alien creation kit present in their libraries. That's the benefit. That's the more difficult way to build a shape and then save it and have it ready to distribute. So the other way, and this is why I saved my little puppeteer dot, ha 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 ha. So there, you could see we have all our settings and stuff that were dialed in. So here the alternate way, and I'll put this right next to my morph created from the first method. The alternative here would be to create the morph, create the shape, and a dial controlling it that requires the kit. And to do that, we would go into create new property. And I'm going to call this demo alien ACK dependent. And I have a habit of doing underscores and things. It's just my thing. So let's do that. Set the minimum limit to 0. Presentation type is a shape. We'll hit create. Then I'll slide that up. Right click, hit ERC freeze, and now you'll see that only the things that are active are brought in. So all those little, like each one of these has nested shapes that they control. So this is only going to look at the top level controls that are engaged from the alien creation kit, which is fine. So now if we hit accept, we can restore the figure, and we get that shape, just like with this one. Should have virtually identical rigging alterations too. So there's two different ways there to end up with the same result. So one of those you can distribute without the end user needing to have the alien creation kit present. The other, they would need to have that present, but since it's a free kit, you can go that route, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue for anyone. In the chat, Colonel Sanders asks, what's the difference between MorphLoader Pro and Advanced? Which Nick Silver answered and says, I think Pro allows you to load multiple morphs and Advanced just does a single. That's one of the differences. Another difference is that MorphLoader Pro will... this goes back to the HD stuff that I talked about earlier. MorphLoader Pro is the one that you need to be able to load like HD content and all that kind of stuff, which basically is just subdivided meshes, subdivided versions of your mesh. And that's a whole can of worms. I actually, I'm not even sure if I can get into it, honestly, here, because Daz is so tight with the EULA licensing stuff on that kind of thing. I'm not even sure how much we're even allowed to talk about outside of DAZ related circles. So which is kind of irritating sometimes, because it's like there's all kinds of cool stuff in that, those things that people might just want to use for themselves. It's not like they're going to necessarily be distributing or anything. So that's something that's always been kind of an issue for me with those things, but it is what it is. So you guys, I want to take a quick look back through the chat. Actually, I think I showed. I didn't. I'm not sure if I showed up everything that was in place on these guys. So There we go. I'll just leave that on screen for a little bit because it's so gosh darned cool. All right, guys. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and kind of take a look at the chat, see what folks are talking about a little bit. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions on what all we've been discussing here today, you'll be able to toss some of that in there. The last of the Alien Allure line of freebies, because it really is an entire little miniature product line of sorts, should be Alien Aggro, which we've been talking about in the chat. I noticed that just a little bit, and that should be coming up available for you guys relatively soon. So if you guys have any questions, comments, thoughts, kind of looking for it there. I know there's always that little bit of a delay between what I say on here, so you guys might not have even heard that until now. But we are really pretty much done with Alien Allure. I actually finished today a couple minutes on the early side, wrapping this up. I think just as a for instance, I'm going to go through and load up one of these scenes. You guys will notice too, my content directories. I actually have a separate one for Alien Allure called Alien Allure Promos, because in some of my promos, I used some other Dark Void materials. Dark Void and Triplonia stuff, which if we pop back over here, let's take a look. Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, let's see. CGB Alien Aggro. Well, where did I put those? There are so many things here in front of me. It's just kind of crazy sometimes. Oh, it was the Alien Creation Kit was the one that I used that stuff on. Yeah, I was very pleased with that. So let's take a look at that. So. Just a quick little look there to kind of show, some different results of that using the different presets, and then with some of the other items available commercially via CGBytes. The Triplonia, I think that's the Scout Kit. There's a lot of cool stuff up there. Different stuff from Dark Void, yada yada yada. So let's pop back over here. I'm going to load up one of those scenes. Maybe we'll take a second to give you guys a little insight into some of that fun stuff. So, and if you notice too, is kind of a little sideline sort of deal. You guys might notice when you're watching these that almost every library that I make, you'll see a folder in mine called Dev. That's mine. That's not yours. You can't have it. I recommend if you're a developer or you're working on being a developer, content artist, I recommend having a dev folder inside your libraries that obviously you don't put that in with your zips when you're done, but it's nice because that dev folder becomes my catch-all, so I can just save scenes real quickly from right here and save different things. Sometimes I'll save poses in there. It's just a general basket of what the, while I'm working. But it's really handy because also inside the dev folders where I'll toss OBJs for things I'm working on or temporary texture files, all kinds of stuff gets tossed in there. So if you guys ever are watching and you're like, man, he has these dev folders, what are those all about? That's what that is. That's my catch-all spot for all this grooviness. So let's take, let's see. Alien Aggro. Let's Let's load up the Alien Aggro Skins scene. That was an interesting question. Lobo asks, have you ever thought about doing a webinar on setting up a testing scene? You know, I have thought many times over about and have attempted to set up different, kinds of scenes that would be kind of just a simple scene for testing products in. But the thing about it, and the reason I haven't done anything like that as a seminar, and I don't actually use something like that for myself, is that I find that products are almost always so unique that it's really difficult to test them in a catch-all sort of way, which is what you would need to be doing to have a dedicated scene for it. I don't know how effective it would be to even have something like that. I mean, and maybe that's just me. Like, I know a lot of folks who test products, and they might have a completely different opinion of that. So it's just something that has never really worked out all that great for me. So that's why I just didn't even think about it. So let's turn this on. Turn it up. And here, yet again, I'm using one of those awesome HDRs that can be found. If you have the Substance suite from Algorithmic, they have a nice little pile of cool HDR images inside that suite. And you can just go find those and drop them into your environment map, in NDS, in iRay, and it is so handy. Those things are nice. This particular backdrop, I thought, like, I don't know, like something about it. I was like, man, I really dig that for these creatures, for these characters. I feel like they came out in the end with almost a modern Star Trek sort of spin to them. Oh yeah, Lobo. I've got a bunch of different lighting presets that I use for all kinds of stuff. Every time I get my hands on a new HDR, I end up saving like anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 different lighting presets from it. So I do use those, lighting and environment presets. I use those a lot. But I actually, again, as far as saving a scene goes, I don't really save scenes for that because I save the lighting presets and then I'll just go through and try out different lighting presets. Like right here on this one, we could swap this out. Actually, I don't think I have. Do I have that saved? I think I have that saved. I don't know. I don't know what I'm up to. Let's change that to something other than that. There we go. And let's go into our render presets. And here I've got just tons of stuff. Let's do... like this overcast beach. Yeah, that one's kind of cool. Similar sort of feel. That was a crazy one for a nighttime setup. So there's so much room to play with those that I don't know. It's like I end up testing against so many different things and run stuff through so many different environment setups that I guess it just never really struck me as something that it seems like something that's so that has so many variables. You know, it varies from product to product so wildly that it just didn't strike me as something really, you know, that I really wanted to get too deep into for folks. Matt Pitts and Colonel Sanders both talking about in terms of morphs, you know, using ZBrush and GoZ. Yes, absolutely. I could not imagine these days trying to do morphs, morph sculpting, morph kits, much of anything in 3D anymore without ZBrush. I'm so, you know, you can take my wife, take my children, but don't take my ZBrush. Okay, guys. So ZBrush is my bread and butter. You know, like, even though I use Maya quite a bit for certain things in other markets, other facets of my business, ZBrush is kind of the staple for everything. Like, just about every single thing I do, I can't think of anything hardly in 3D production that I do that doesn't pass through ZBrush at some point. So, well, guys, it is 7:01 on one of my clocks here, 7:03 on another, which means my clocks are damn dirty liars. But what that does mean is that we are ready to close this out for the day. I thank you guys for hanging out with us. I hope you've enjoyed the Alien Allure series. I hope this has kind of shed some light for you guys on character creation, morphs, texturing, and thinking about character design as well, because I try to put a little bit more emphasis on that than maybe what you'll find in a lot of other, you know, tutorials and learning materials, simply because as I look around and I do searches and things like that, it seems to me like those are things that kind of get overlooked. You know, people want to talk about the technical stuff and, well, this is the button you push for this and the dial you move for this, but buttons and dials change. Art does not. Design does not. Those things, their principles are the same regardless of the tools. So if you pay attention to that stuff, you know, in the course of what you learn, then the things you learn will stick with you and you'll be useful even as the tools and technologies change. So I hope you guys enjoy that aspect of things. Hope you've, you know, really been digging the Alien Allure product line and the whole series that we've done around this. So just to reiterate what we mentioned earlier, next week is a quote-unquote pickup week where we're going to be talking about just kind of a handful of different things, maybe not even all that related to each other at times. Also, it's an open forum where I want you guys to send in more questions and things to me via Facebook or wherever, you know, all the different avenues through which I can be reached. Post them on, you know, to like the CGBytes pages on Facebook or groups and things like that. And I'll just be kind of addressing, you know, just different ideas and questions and concerns you folks may have. So next week is your week. Every week's your week, but next week is literally your week where I don't have something that I'm putting on deck and I'm just going to be fielding whatever you guys throw at me, and hopefully it won't be too absolutely utterly insane. So until then, thanks to everybody for being here, all the cool folks for hanging out in the chat and keeping it lively. Thanks to Jason and Terry from CGBytes for always being here and kind of keeping the rabble-rousers at bay. Nah, you guys are cool. And so I am, again, you know, okay, for anybody who pops in at the end, I'm Les Garner from 6S1 Media, here for CGBytes in our artist development series. Till next week, you guys keep making cool stuff. Catch you later.